Trying to understand a woman's mind using male logic is like solving a Rubik's Cube in the dark. The colors keep changing. The rules aren't written down. The very thing that makes her feel safe is the same thing that makes her restless. You've given everything. Your time presence, honesty, vulnerability. And still something shifted. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded at a game you didn't know you were playing. Her brain isn't broken. It's running code, written in survival memory and shadow. And if you keep trying to decode her the way you decode yourself, you'll spend your whole life failing a test that doesn't have answers. Let's change that. You did everything right. You listened, remembered, showed up consistently. You thought presence plus consistency equals love. Then one day, I don't feel it anymore. Not, you did something wrong. Just, the feeling left. Like weather changing. Men hear this and spiral rewinding the tape for the error. But here's what Jung understood. She's not operating on logic. She's operating on emotional cartography mapping terrain you can't see. In evolutionary terms, women didn't evolve to choose the stable man. They evolved to test him, to extract proof. Because in ancestral environments, comfort without vigilance meant death. She doesn't stay where the game has ended. She stays where the game continues to matter. This is the Carl Jung shadow feminine archetype, always seeking proof that the choice she made still holds value. You think love is a destination. She experiences it as a journey, requiring constant navigation. The moment you stop moving, she feels the ground shift, not because you're failing, but because her psyche interprets stillness as stagnation. Comfort as complacency. When you argue about last Tuesday, you're focused on last Tuesday. The facts, the context, your exact words. One moment, one mistake. But she's not in last Tuesday. She's in every Tuesday before it. During conflict, men activate problem-solving centers. Linear thinking, cause and effect. Women activate emotional processing and memory centers simultaneously. What you said last week connects to 6 months ago, connects to what her father said when she was 12, connects to wounds she's carried since childhood. This is the mother wound, unresolved emotional imprints, stored not in logic, but in body memory. She's not overreacting. She's responding to a pattern her psyche recognizes as dangerous. You feel judged for one mistake. She's watching a movie she's already seen, and she knows how it ends. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow record, the unconscious ledger. You present as reliable, so every time you're late gets filed away. You say you're present, so every distraction becomes evidence of deeper truth. She's not keeping score to punish you. She's keeping score to protect herself. Her brain is designed to detect patterns, to sense danger before it becomes obvious. The gap between who you present as and who her shadow keeps track of becomes the source of her doubt. Here's the cruel irony. The more you try to be what she wants, the less attractive you become. The more you adjust to feedback, the more her unconscious doubts you. She says she wants vulnerability, openness feelings. But when you give them something, recoils. Not because she lied, but because her unconscious was testing whether you'd maintain frame under pressure. She doesn't want submission. She wants to know your strength is real, that you can hold space for her emotions without collapsing into your own. Until you understand this, you'll keep giving her what she asks for, confused why it pushes her away. There are 4 unconscious variables constantly calculating beneath her awareness. How does this make me feel right now? Not, is this logical? But immediate emotional resonance. Safe or threatening? Alive or deadening? 2. What can I extract? Time, attention validation, emotional labor. Not malicious archetypal. She's unconsciously evaluating, is he investing his best or his leftovers? 3. How does this affect my status among women? Every relationship exists in the social matrix of female comparison. The archetypal queen energy, knowing her value, is partly determined by how others perceive her choices. 4. Can I do better? The question whispered by the shadow. The hypergamy calculator, always running, always comparing current reality against imagined possibility. These aren't moral judgments, they're archetypal drives. The lover seeking validation. The queen navigating hierarchy. The shadow guarding against scarcity. You take her to dinner. You're thinking quality time connection. Her algorithm runs differently. Is this effort or obligation? Is he present or distracted? What does this signal if I share it? Could I have more? This is why giving more doesn't always create security. You're competing with her imagination, with social comparison, with fantasies constantly raising the bar. The only way through isn't giving more, it's giving from self, not from fear. You think loyalty means staying, being faithful, choosing her consistently. For her, loyalty isn't passive presence, it's active proof of continued worth. Men bond through standing beside each other even when inconvenient. Women need continually being chosen in ways that prove they're still worth choosing. This is where persona and shadow collide. Consciously, she wants commitment. Unconsciously, her shadow whispers, if he's staying, is it because I'm valuable or because he's stuck? For you, complacency feels like stability. For her, complacency feels like betrayal, evidence she's no longer worth effort. You build routines, safety, predictability. You think this is love matured, but her psyche reads it differently. For women, emotional intensity isn't volatility, it's proof of aliveness. When intensity fades, her unconscious questions whether love faded with it. You're thinking, I'm here, faithful, committed. What more? She wants to still feel chosen, not past tense, but present, continuous. This is the conflict between male and female love. Men love by being, women love by feeling. When being stops generating feeling, the disconnect begins. Beneath both patterns is fear. Your fear that effort is never enough. Her fear that rest means she'll become invisible. The way through isn't eliminating fear, it's seeing it, naming it, recognizing it as inner work both are avoiding. Pause. Notice what's coming up. Is this landing as truth or trigger? Both are information showing you where your shadow lives. Her relationship with you isn't private, it's public. Not necessarily on social media, but in the invisible courtroom of female dynamics, where every choice is evaluated, every partner compared, every relationship ranked. Welcome to the shadow sisterhood. This isn't malice, it's archetypal competition on modern substrate. The mechanism that once ensured resource access now runs on comparison, attractiveness, success, attentiveness, emotional availability. Your relationship is partly measured by people who'll never meet you, by Instagram stories and lunch conversations, by curated highlights with struggles edited out. She doesn't just want a good man, she wants better than the invisible standard set by her social circle, family history, mental narrative of what she deserves. And that standard moves, escalates. Every time someone in her orbit gets a promotion, a ring, a moment of visible devotion, the baseline shifts. What was exceptional becomes expected. You can do everything right and still feel like you're failing. You're being measured against a constantly updating algorithm, pulling data from everywhere. Her friend's boyfriend, the romance novel, the couple laughing in the coffee shop, the life her younger self imagined. You're competing with fantasy, with edited highlights, with collective mythology of what love should look like. There's no winning that competition. The goalpost moves, not because she's cruel, but because her psyche is ensuring she didn't settle. She tells you what she wants, You give it. Then the very thing she asked for becomes why she loses attraction. She wants emotional availability. You open up, share fears, vulnerability. Something in her eyes changes. The chemistry shifts. She wants flexibility, compromise. You adapt, bend, show her voice matters. Slowly, her respect erodes. This isn't hypocrisy. This is the animus-anima paradox, conscious mind, wanting one thing, unconscious requiring another. What's happening is a test of frame your capacity to remain centered in your reality while holding space for hers, to be unmoved by her emotional weather without being closed to it. When she pushes, she's asking, "Are you solid? Can I lean my full weight and find resistance? Or will you collapse?" She doesn't want you to be her. She wants you fully, confidently, immovably you. So when she loses herself in emotion, she can find her way back by encountering your steadiness. But you've been taught to accommodate, to adjust. And in doing so, you fail the test you didn't know you were taking. She says she wants you to cry, and consciously she means it. But when you actually cry, something ancient recoils. Her psyche detects whether your emotional release is integrated strength or fragmented collapse. Cry from a grounded place with center intact, she softens, moves closer. Cry from needing her to fix you, her attraction vanishes. Her feminine energy just detected, it's now responsible for holding both emotional worlds. This is why just be yourself fails catastrophically. The self she's attracted to isn't your unintegrated performing for approval self. It's your individuated self who's done shadow work, holds ground. While staying open can be soft without being weak. Most men haven't met that self yet. So they oscillate between performance and collapse, never landing where attraction lives. In ancestral environments, women who couldn't extract resources didn't survive. The psyche developed a mechanism test extract secure. Today, resources have changed, but the mechanism hasn't. Now, women extract emotional labor, attention, time, validation, proof of investment. Watch when you start dating. Requests begin small. Text good night, call during lunch, help me move. Each is a micro test. Will you give? How much? What will you sacrifice? If you comply, easily requests escalate. Not greed, her unconscious searching for your breaking point, where you'll finally say, "No, this is too much." Where you'll establish a boundary proving you have value independent of her validation. Most men never set that boundary. They keep giving, thinking generosity equals love. With each yes, her unconscious loses respect. If you'll give everything, you mustn't think you're worth anything. When you give from abundance, it builds attraction. From scarcity, it repels. Same action, different energy. She feels the difference. Flowers because you want to, because it brings you joy. She receives it as gift. Flowers because you're afraid she's losing interest. She receives it as debt. Evidence you think you're losing. The extraction protocol seeks one thing. Are you giving from self or from fear? From self, generosity is attractive. Overflow, proof giving doesn't diminish you. From fear, it's repellent, depletion proof you're already empty. Her unconscious pushes until it finds which is true. Stop playing. Not by withholding, but by giving from a different place. Give because you choose to, not because you have to. From overflow, not deficit. When her unconscious pushes, don't collapse. Don't comply. Don't scramble to prove worth. Be still. Grounded. Not withholding love, not chasing approval. The moment you stop extracting worth from her validation, her extraction loses power. She can't leverage what you're not hungry for. Paradoxically, that's when she feels safest. When your love isn't dependent on her performance, your center doesn't move with her moods. That's when she can finally rest. Take a breath. This is heavy. Let it move through you. This isn't here to make you bitter. It's here to make you free. Two levers move men: guilt and fear. You're not enough. That's guilt. I might leave. That's fear. Between these poles, most relationships live and die. Guilt is unmet expectation, deployed through subtle disappointment comparisons that sting, making you feel perpetually short of unreachable standards. My friend's boyfriend would never. I thought you were different. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Each phrase triggers, I'm failing. I need to do more. I need to earn my place. You absorb it, carry it, make fixing it your responsibility. Giving her Carl Jung shadow exactly what it wants: power over your self-worth. This isn't conscious evil, it's survival architecture. Guilt was social glue keeping men invested. Today it becomes emotional manipulation, keeping you performing, proving endlessly working to be worthy of love you're already giving. Fear is simpler. The threat of absence. The suggestion she could leave you could be replaced. Your value is conditional. It's in the tone mentioning another man's qualities. The pause before saying, I love you. Back. The distance after conflict making you chase. Men taught they must earn. Love, respond as programmed. They pursue, apologize, do whatever closes the distance. You don't call it fear. You call it love. But you're really fighting the terror of abandonment in your own shadow, the wound, saying if she leaves it confirms I was never enough. She's often as trapped as you are. She wields guilt because her shadow learned direct expression results in neglect. That men respond to pressure, not vulnerability. That the only way to get what she needs is making you feel bad. She uses fear because her shadow learned secure men become complacent. That absence creates desire. That fully giving herself means losing leverage. Neither is the villain. You're both unconscious participants in a shadow play, written by wounds, neither created. The little boy learned love is conditional, earned through performance. The little girl learned expressing need directly leads to disappointment, that vulnerability is dangerous. These wounded children dressed as adults keep triggering each other's deepest fears while calling it love. When you see the pattern, you stop being run by it. When she deploys, guilt recognize. This is her shadow trying to control through shame. I don't have to carry it. When she triggers fear, witness. This is my abandonment wound. Mine to heal, not hers to manage. The path isn't fighting back. It's individuation, Jung's term for becoming whole. Integrating the shadow so it stops running your life. When you've done your work, guilt can't stick. You know your worth isn't determined by her satisfaction. Fear loses power. Your wholeness doesn't depend on her staying. And when you stop being moved by guilt and fear, you become the grounded presence she's unconsciously been searching for all along. Boys and girls don't receive love the same way. Those early lessons become blueprints for every relationship after. Boys learn love is earned. Value is conditional, tied to performance, utility, what they provide. When a boy falls, get up, be strong. Stop crying. Comfort withheld until he handles it himself. When he succeeds, praise flows. Attention rewards being useful. The message embeds, you are what you do. Worth is performance. Love must be earned through sacrifice. Every relationship becomes an audition. Every woman a judge whose approval must be won. But the love never feels secure. If earned, it can be lost. Girls get different programming. From birth, you're precious, valuable for existing, deserving protection simply for what you are. But underneath your value lies in being chosen, in being desired, the object of pursuit, not agent of your own worth. She learns to evaluate herself through others' eyes, to measure worth by quality of male attention, to see relationships as validation of innate value. She's taught she deserves love, but also that deserving and receiving are different. that she must be beautiful enough, worthy enough to keep what she's been told she deserves. This creates the princess wound, believing she shouldn't work for love, but also terrified she's not special enough to receive it. He's trying to earn love through performance. She's determining if she's special enough to deserve it without performing. He gives everything effort proves worth. She receives everything thinking it proves she's valuable, but wondering if his effort is real or desperation. He's addicted to her approval. She's withholding approval. Both are unconscious. Understanding this doesn't erase programming, but it creates space, room to see the pattern without being controlled by it. When you're chasing approval, you're the little boy earning mother's love. When she's testing devotion, she's the little girl checking if she's special enough. In that recognition, compassion becomes possible. You both came carrying wounds. You didn't create acting them out unconsciously in every relationship. The work isn't erasing programs, it's becoming conscious of them. Seeing when they're running. Choosing in awareness whether to follow the old script or write a new one. Her brain has a sensor, an early warning system so finely tuned it can detect weakness before you're consciously aware you're displaying it. And when it registers weakness, something ancient in her shifts. The chemistry changes, attraction fades, not because she's shallow, but because her psyche is designed to filter for one thing above all else, strength that's real, not performed. Neuroscience tells us something fascinating. The female brain processes mate selection through both conscious and unconscious channels. Consciously, she might value kindness, humor, compatibility. But unconsciously, her limbic system is running a different program. It's scanning for signs of integrated power, for presence that doesn't waver, for emotional stability under pressure, for the capacity to remain grounded when her emotional weather turns stormy. This isn't a moral judgment. It's biology filtered through archetypal psychology. In the ancestral world, survival depended on choosing partners who could handle stress, protect under threat, remain steady when everything else was chaos. Today, there's no lion at the cave entrance, but the detection system remains, and it's triggered by the modern equivalence of ancestral weakness, hesitation. When you can't make a decision, when you defer to her constantly, when you need her permission to act, her unconscious reads it as lack of center, as a man who doesn't trust his own judgment, insecurity, the need for constant reassurance, the questions that reveal you're measuring your worth through her eyes. Do you still love me? Are you happy? Am I doing okay? Emotional collapse. Not emotion itself, but the inability to hold your emotional state without needing her to fix it. The moments when you cry to her instead of with her, when your vulnerability becomes her burden. Approval seeking. When your actions are designed to please rather than express. When you're performing a version of yourself you think she wants, rather than being the self you've actually become. Each of these triggers the detection system. And once triggered, attraction doesn't just fade, it inverts. What was desire becomes something closer to maternal concern. She stops being your lover and starts being your handler, and you both feel the shift even if neither can name it. When her weakness detection system activates, the shadow feminine archetype emerges, the part of her psyche that becomes critical, withholding, contemptuous. She starts to test you more aggressively, pushing boundaries to see if you'll hold them, creating emotional chaos to see if you'll collapse, comparing you to other men to see if you'll scramble to compete. This isn't cruelty. It's the unconscious trying to find out if strength is still present, if it was ever real, or if what she mistook for power was just performance that crumbled under pressure. And here's the trap. The more you try to prove your strength, the weaker you appear. Because real strength doesn't need proof. It simply is. Present, grounded, unmoved by the need to defend itself. And you, in response, often do the worst possible thing: you try harder. You perform more. You become defensive. You explain and justify and work to convince her that you're strong enough, all of which confirms exactly what her unconscious suspected you're not. Or you do the opposite. You shut down, become cold. Withdraw your presence as punishment for her withdrawal of affection. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually confirming another form of weakness, the inability to stay present when presence is uncomfortable. The Carl Jung shadow masculine in both cases is running the show. The part of you that never integrated rejection, that never learned to hold your center when someone else's emotional weather turns dark. Real strength isn't dominance. It's not control. It's not stoicism or emotional lockdown or never showing vulnerability. Real strength is integration. It's the capacity to be fully present in your emotion without being lost in it. To be affected without being controlled. To remain grounded in your center while still being genuinely open to connection. It's the ability to hear her say, "I don't feel it anymore," without collapsing into panic or hardening into bitterness. To sit with the pain of it, to acknowledge it, and still remain solid in your sense of self. It's being able to cry without needing her to fix you. To share your struggles without making them her responsibility. To be vulnerable from fullness rather than from lack. This is the integrated masculine, the self that's done the shadow work, that's faced its own fear, loneliness, shame, and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. And this is what her detection system is searching for. Not the man who never shows weakness, but the man who integrates weakness into strength, who owns his shadows without being owned by them. When she finds that the testing stops, not because she's decided you're worthy, but because her unconscious finally feels safe. Because integrated strength is the only thing that gives her permission to lower her own defenses and risk being fully present too. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Women are fluent in a language most men can barely speak. The language of emotion as tool, as strategy, as weapon. Men experience emotions as problems to be solved. Women experience emotions as information to be used. And until you understand this, you'll spend your life confused about why her tears sometimes don't match the situation, why her anger appears and disappears like weather, why her emotional responses seem calculated even when they feel real. Women learn early that emotions have power, that tears can stop conflicts, that sadness can elicit care, that anger can create space, that withdrawal can generate pursuit. This isn't taught explicitly, it's absorbed. Through watching mothers, sisters, peers navigate a world where direct power is often limited, but emotional influence is vast. And so emotions become vocabulary, a sophisticated, nuanced language where every shade of feeling communicates something tactical as well as genuine. Her tears might be real pain and also a test to see if you'll stay present. Her anger might be genuine frustration and also a probe to see if you'll hold your ground. Her coldness might be authentic disconnection and also a strategy to generate the pursuing energy she's stopped feeling. This doesn't make the emotions fake. It makes them multidimensional, operating on layers most men can't see. Men are at a profound disadvantage here. You're taught that emotions are simple. You're sad, so you express sadness. You're angry, so you express anger. What you feel is what you show, and what you show is what you mean. But in her world, emotions are chess moves, and you're playing checkers. She cries. You comfort. She keeps crying. You comfort more intensely. She stops crying. You think you solved it. But what really happened is she gathered data about your capacity for emotional labor, your willingness to center her feelings, your threshold for discomfort. She gets angry. You defend. She gets angrier. You defend harder. Eventually she stops. You think the storm passed. But what really happened is, she tested whether you'd lose your frame, become reactive, prove that your emotional stability was performance. You're thinking content? She's thinking context. You're responding to the feeling. She's aware of the response the feeling generates. The Carl Jung shadow side of this emotional fluency is weaponization. The moment when emotions shift from communication to control, from authentic expression to strategic manipulation. And the line between them is thin, sometimes invisible. She might cry because she's genuinely hurt, but also because tears historically get you to stop pushing back, to concede, to make her pain your responsibility. She might withdraw because she needs space, but also because withdrawal has always made you chase, has always put you in the position of pursuer, proving his devotion. She might express uncertainty about the relationship because she's authentically confused, but also because expressing uncertainty makes you work harder, prove more, demonstrate your commitment in increasingly desperate ways. This isn't conscious scheming. It's learned behavior reinforced by 1,000 small successes. Every time an emotional display generated the result she needed, the pattern strengthened. Every time tears stopped an argument, or anger created space, or coldness generated pursuit. Her unconscious filed it under effective strategy. But here's what most people miss. This emotional fluency comes at a cost. To her. Because when emotions become tools, it becomes harder to know which feelings are genuine and which are strategic. The line between authentic vulnerability and performed vulnerability blurs. She might cry and genuinely not know if it's real sadness or learned manipulation. She might withdraw and truly be unable to distinguish between needing space and creating distance to test you. The shadow consumes its wielder too. And what starts as emotional intelligence can evolve into emotional entanglement, where she's trapped in patterns she can't escape even when she wants to. The answer isn't to become emotionally defended, to dismiss her feelings as manipulation, to harden yourself against the tools in her arsenal. The answer is to become emotionally grounded, to be present to her feelings without being controlled by them, to acknowledge her pain without making it your responsibility to fix. When she cries, you stay. But you don't collapse into rescue mode. You hold space. You remain present. But you don't surrender your boundaries or your truth. When she rages, you stay. But you don't become defensive. You listen. You acknowledge. But you don't absorb blame for things that aren't yours. When she withdraws, you stay. But you don't chase. You remain available. Open. But you don't sacrifice your center trying to bridge the gap she created. This is emotional maturity meeting emotional strategy. And when met with grounded presence, the weaponization loses power. Not because you've defended against it, but because you've ceased to be a target. You're no longer moved by the tools, so the tools stop being used. And in that space, something else becomes possible: genuine emotion. Unstrategized, raw, real. The feelings beneath the patterns, the truth beneath the tools. That's when real intimacy begins. Here's where male and female psychology diverge most dramatically, where the confusion deepens into something that feels like insanity. Women can hold contradictory beliefs simultaneously, not sequentially, not with cognitive dissonance, but comfortably as two truths existing in parallel. And for men, this is maddening. She loves you. She also thinks she could do better. She's committed. She's also keeping her options open. She wants stability. She's bored by predictability. She values your presence. She resents that you're always there. To you, these contradictions prove instability, confusion, maybe deception. Because in male logic, truth is singular. A thing is either true or it isn't. Love either exists or it doesn't. Commitment means all in or all out. But her psyche doesn't work that way. For her, truth is contextual, emotional, responsive to the moment rather than fixed across time. In the morning, she feels the truth of loving you. By evening, she feels the truth of wondering if there's something more. Both are real. Both are honest. Neither negates the other. This is dialectical thinking, the capacity to hold thesis and antithesis without needing to resolve them into synthesis, to exist in the tension between opposing truths without collapsing into one or the other. Jung understood this as the unresolved tension between masculine and feminine principles within each person. The animus and anima, the inner masculine and inner feminine, locked in eternal dialogue. For women whose primary identity is feminine, the animus voices doubt, ambition, the restless question of whether this is all there is, whether the choice she made forecloses better choices waiting somewhere in the future. So she loves you with her feminine heart and doubts you with her masculine mind. And both exist simultaneously, and both are to her equally valid. You're asking her to choose, to land on one truth and stay there, to be consistent. But her psyche isn't designed for that kind of consistency. It's designed for fluidity, for adaptation, for holding multiple perspectives until the context makes one more relevant than the others. What makes this even more confusing, which truth is dominant, changes with context. When you're present, strong, grounded, the truth of loving you dominates. She feels it fully. She means it when she says it. But when you're absent, when conflict arises, when she's scrolling social media, seeing curated versions of other people's happiness, the truth of doubt dominates. And she feels that just as fully. Neither is lie. Both are truth, selected by context, by mood, by the archetypal energy currently running her psyche. This is why asking, "Do you love me?" is such a dangerous question. Because the answer is yes. And also sometimes, "I'm not sure." And both can be true within the same hour. For you, this feels like betrayal, because you operate on consistency. When you commit, you mean it across all contexts. When you love, it's a decision that holds even when feelings waver. You think she's lying, or confused, or broken, or manipulative, because her truth shifts while your truth stays fixed. But she's not any of those things. She's just structured differently, operating on a psychological architecture that allows contradiction without crisis. And the more you push her to choose to be consistent, to nail down one truth, the more frustrated you become. Because she can't give you the answer you need. The answer that makes sense to you doesn't exist in her world. Here's what makes this bearable understanding, that her contradictions aren't about you. They're about her relationship with her own psyche, her own unintegrated shadow. The part of her that loves you is real. The part that doubts is also real. Both live in her, and until she does the work to integrate them, they'll continue to exist in tension. Your job isn't to resolve her contradiction. It's to remain grounded in your own truth while she navigates hers. When she says she loves you, receive it. When she expresses doubt, don't collapse. Neither statement is the final word. Both are snapshots of an internal process that's constantly shifting. The more solid you are in your own center, the less her contradictions will destabilize you. Because you'll know her doubt isn't evidence of your failure. It's evidence of her unfinished individuation process. And your consistency, your groundedness, your refusal to be moved by her shifting truths might be exactly what helps her eventually integrate. Because you become the stable reference point around which her contradictions can finally resolve. But only if you don't take them personally. only if you can hold space for her dialectical mind, without needing to fix it, understand it completely, or force it into the singular truth you're comfortable with. Let's talk about the calculator. The invisible algorithm running in the background of her psyche, constantly updating, constantly comparing, constantly measuring your value against the ever-expanding possibility of something better. This is hypergamy, the unconscious drive to trade up, to ensure that the partner she's with remains the best available option, not just in absolute terms, but relative to what else might be accessible. In evolutionary psychology, hypergamy made sense. Resources were scarce. Female fertility was limited. Every choice carried survival weight. Choosing the best mate wasn't vanity. It was life and death for her and her offspring. So women evolved the capacity to constantly assess, is this the best I can do, or could I do better? That calculation isn't rational. It's not a spreadsheet of pros and cons. It's a felt sense, an intuition, a persistent whisper from the shadow, asking, are you sure? What if there's more? Today the resource landscape has changed, but the calculator remains. It's no longer measuring hunting ability or physical protection. It's measuring status, emotional attunement, social proof, ambition appearance, the intangible qualities that signal high value in contemporary terms. And the bar keeps rising. Not because you're falling, but because the world keeps showing her new possibilities. Social media displays an endless parade of men who seem more attentive, more successful, more devoted, more exciting. Every scroll session recalibrates the baseline. You were enough when she chose you. But enough is a moving target, and every comparison shifts the scale. Archetypally, this is the queen energy. The part of her psyche that knows her value is partly determined by who sits beside her on the throne. If you elevate, she elevates. If you stagnate, her throne feels smaller. And the shadow queen whispers, you could rule a larger kingdom. You could have more. You deserve more. This isn't greed. It's the psychological drive to ensure she didn't settle. That her choice of you doesn't limit her potential. That the life she's building with you matches or exceeds the life she imagines was possible. And the cruelest part, you're not competing with real men. You're competing with idealized versions, with highlight reels, with fantasy projections of what relationships could be if they were edited down to their best moments. You can't win this game by being better, because better is infinite. There's always someone more successful, more attractive, more emotionally available, more exciting, more something. The hypergamy calculator doesn't care about your absolute value. It cares about relative value. And relative value is determined by comparison, which is determined by imagination, which is limitless. So even if you're exceptional, her unconscious can generate a version of exceptional plus one, a man who has everything you have, and also the thing you lack. And that imagined man becomes the new standard you're measured against. This is why so many good men feel like they're failing. Not because they're not good enough in objective terms, but because good enough is determined by a constantly recalibrating algorithm that pulls data from an infinite pool of curated fantasy. Here's the only way out: stop playing the game. Not by giving less, not by becoming complacent, but by refusing to derive your worth from her assessment. The moment your value becomes internal rather than external, her calculator loses power. Because the data it's measuring is no longer the data you're identified with. She can compare you to other men, and it doesn't move you. Not because you're arrogant, but because your worth isn't contingent on winning that comparison. She can imagine better, and it doesn't threaten you. Not because you're indifferent, but because you know imagination isn't reality, and you're grounded in what's actually here. This is individuation. This is what Jung meant by the integrated self. the person who stepped out of the comparison matrix entirely and lives from their own center. And paradoxically, that's what stops the hypergamy calculator. Not because you've proven you're better than everyone else, but because you've stopped needing to be. You've stopped playing a game designed to keep you insecure, and in stepping out, you become the rare thing her psyche has been searching. For a man who can't be moved by comparison because he's already whole. So where does this leave us? You've made it this far, through the mechanisms, the shadow patterns, the archetypal drives that shape female psychology in ways most people never see. And maybe you're angry, or exhausted, or grief-stricken at how much energy you've poured into relationships that felt like impossible games. But here's what I need you to understand. The female brain isn't broken. It's running survival code mixed with shadow wounds. Patterns installed before language, reinforced by culture and activated by the same fear that drives all human behavior, the fear of not being enough, of being abandoned, of making the wrong choice and paying for it forever. She's not your enemy. She's not a puzzle to solve or a system to hack. She's a human being carrying wounds you can't see, operating on programs she didn't consciously choose, trying to find safety in a world that taught her love is scarce and must be secured through vigilance. And here's the hardest part. Everything you see in her is a reflection of something in you, her testing. It's showing you where you haven't established boundaries, where you're still seeking external validation, where you're performing instead of being. Her contradictions, they're mirroring your own unintegrated shadow, the parts of you that haven't resolved the tension between who you are and who you think you should be. Her emotional strategies, they're revealing where you're still emotionally underdeveloped, where you're reactive instead of responsive, where you mistake intensity for connection. This isn't about blame, it's about recognition. The relationship you are in is always a mirror, and what you see in her that frustrates you, confuses you, hurts you, is almost always pointing to the Carl Jung shadow work you've been avoiding. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation requires consciousness, requires seeing the patterns, requires doing the inner work that most people spend their lives avoiding. You can't change her. You can't fix her shadow. You can't make her stop testing, stop comparing, stop running the unconscious programs that drive her behavior. But you can change yourself. You can do your shadow work. You can become conscious of the patterns in you that keep attracting and reinforcing these dynamics. You can learn to give from overflow instead of depletion, to love from wholeness instead of need, to remain grounded in your center while still being genuinely present. You can integrate your masculine shadow, the approval, seeking, the performing, the belief that you must earn love through sacrifice. And in integrating it, you stop being run by it. And when you stop being run by your shadow, something shifts. The dynamics that felt like torture start to lose their grip, not because she changes, but because you're no longer available for the dance. Here's what Jung knew that most people miss: love is not possession. Love is the mirror where you see your own shadow and still choose to stay. Not to fix it, not to hide it, but to acknowledge it, to work with it, to slowly, patiently integrate it into the wholeness you're becoming. The woman in your life isn't there to complete you. She's there to show you where you're still fragmented, where you're still performing, where you're still running from the parts of yourself you haven't learned to love. And if you can receive that, if you can see her behavior as information rather than attack, as reflection rather than rejection, then everything shifts. The testing becomes opportunity to establish boundaries. The contradictions become space to practice staying grounded. The emotional strategies become invitations to deepen your own emotional maturity. This is the awakening, not the moment when you finally understand women, but the moment when you realize understanding isn't the goal. Integration is. You stop trying to decode her and start doing your own inner work. You stop trying to change her patterns and start changing your response to them. You stop seeking wholeness through relationship and start building it within yourself. And paradoxically, when you stop needing her to be different, she often becomes exactly what you were looking for. Not because you manipulated her into it, but because your wholeness gave her permission to stop defending, stop testing, stop running the programs that no longer serve her. Or she doesn't. And that's information too. Information that maybe this relationship isn't the place where both of you can do your healing work. That maybe the mirror has shown you what you needed to see, and it's time to honor that and move forward. Either way, you win. Because the work you've done, the consciousness you've gained, the integration you've achieved goes with you into the next relationship, into every aspect of your life, into the person you're becoming. So here's my invitation. Stop making her wrong. Stop making yourself wrong. Stop trying to win a game that was never designed to be won. Start doing the work, the real work, the shadow work that Jung spent his life mapping. The individuation process that transforms you from a fragmented collection of personas into an integrated self. Face the parts of yourself you've been running from. The neediness, the fear, the anger, the shame. The little boy still trying to earn love he thinks he doesn't deserve. Integrate them. Not by fixing them, but by acknowledging them, by making space for them, by slowly, compassionately bringing them into consciousness, where they can be seen, understood, and transformed. And as you do, watch what happens. Watch how the relationships that were torture become workable. How the patterns that felt impossible to break start to loosen. How the woman who seemed like a mystery becomes simply human. Flawed, wounded, working with her own shadows, just like you're working with yours. This is the path, not to perfect love, but to conscious love, to relationships built not on fantasy, but on two people willing to see their shadows and still choose presence. That's the only love worth having, the only love that lasts. The love that Jung meant when he said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking." Choose love, choose consciousness, choose the work, and let everything else fall away. If this resonated, if it named something you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, consider sharing it. Someone in your life might be struggling with the same questions. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is let others know they're not alone in the confusion. And if you're ready to go deeper, to do the real work of shadow integration, start with one question. What pattern keeps showing up in my relationships? That pattern is your mirror. That pattern is showing you exactly where your work lives. Until next time, do the work. Stay conscious, and remember, you are not broken. You're just becoming whole.